December 1983 saw the release of Brian De Palma's epic crime drama Scarface by Universal Pictures. A loose remake of the 1932 film of the same name, Brian De Palma's version tells the story of Cuban refugee Tony Montana, played by Al Pacino, who arrives in 1980s Miami and rises to become a powerful drug kingpin. Although the film was a box office success, the film's initial critical reception was somewhat negative, with particular attention paid to the film's excessive violence and strong language. However, in the years since, the film has had something of a reappraisal from critics, and it is now generally considered to be one of the greatest crime films ever made. The film's journey to the silver screen was fraught with classification issues in various countries. Germany and Norway, for example, both made cuts to the film for its initial theatrical releases. Scarface was also troublesome for the MPAA in the United States and the BBFC in the UK, and in this edition of Cutting Edge, we'll be taking a look at the film's classification in these two territories. After Brian De Palma had completed the film, it was submitted to the MPAA for a classification. On the afternoon of October 30th, 1983, a board of 7 members at the MPAA gave the film an X rating, which is the equivalent of the modern NC-17. Their chief concern was the film's excessive and cumulative violence, including a contentious scene involving the shooting of a clown. In 2018, the year of the film's 35th anniversary, De Palma argued that the film's violence had a purpose and that he hadn't held back on its treatment, remarking,
"I thought that we had to show that these were different kinds of gangsters. I thought, right at the beginning, let's show the kind of violence we're going to be dealing with."
In the 1980s, the X rating carried with it an association with pornography, although that was never the MPAA's intention. An X film simply decreed that a film was suitable for adults, but since the X was not trademarked, pornographic filmmakers had taken to using the X rating as a sort of badge of honor in order to market their films, with XXX films denoting the very best in adult entertainment. After Scarface received an X, Martin Bregman, the film's producer, was reported as saying, "We have been officially designated as a pornographic film." Alan Friedberg, then president of the SAC theatre chain in Massachusetts, had seen the uncut version a week prior and said that Scarface argued the case for an M for mature or A for adult rating that would not stigmatize the film in the way an X rating would, remarking that the film should not be lumped with Debbie Does Dallas. Additionally, only a few days before the MPAA's decision on October 30th, Robert Ream, who was at that time the president of Universal's Theatrical Motion Picture Division, had said that under no circumstances would Universal Pictures release Scarface with an X rating. As a result, Brian De Palma was forced to recut the film before resubmitting it to the MPAA with the hope of bringing it down to an R rating. This would allow anyone under 18 to attend, as long as they were accompanied by an adult guardian. De Palma submitted Scarface to the MPAA 3 more times after his initial uncut submission, making a number of minor cuts in various scenes, but the MPAA issued the film with an X rating every single time. Fed up with the lack of progress, Brian De Palma told Universal to either release the film as is, or fire him and hire another director to make the necessary changes in order for the film to achieve an R. To their credit, Universal favoured neither option, so instead they accepted the X rating and decided to appeal the MPAA's decision. De Palma saw this as a positive, remarking that the situation was
"Kinda good. If we win the appeal, the whole world can see what the board considers an X picture."
In an effort to drum up support for an R rating, Brian De Palma and Robert Bregman went public with their complaints about the X rating in the fall of 1983, criticising the MPAA's decision on Entertainment Tonight, as well as arranging screenings of the film for members of the American press. On November 8, 1983, the MPAA Appeals Board debated the X rating given to Scarface. The film had been submitted for a fifth time to the MPAA in its original uncut version, and presiding over the appeal was MPAA President Jack Valenti, along with 14 members drawn from 3 groups that supply the rating system with its professional support. The major film distributors who belong to the MPAA itself, motion picture exhibitors from NATO, the National Association of Theatre Owners, and representatives of the Independent Film Importers and Distributors of America. Richard Hefner, who was the chairman of the MPAA Ratings Board, gave a presentation in favour of an X rating, but he knew that MPAA President Jack Valenti did not support the decision. Not only did Valenti not want to alienate the big movie studios, which form part of the MPAA, he actually had praise for the film, calling it a very anti-drug film. On behalf of the distributors, Universal Studios President Robert Ream attended the hearing along with Brian De Palma, as well as the head of Florida's Broward County Organized Crime Division, who served as a technical advisor on the film, all of whom spoke in favour of releasing the film as an R. Film critic Jay Cox read out a letter of support from film critic Roger Ebert, and Alan Friedberg went on record stating that he felt that the film was acceptable as an R. In the end, the outcome of the appeal was overwhelmingly in favour of releasing the film with an R rating. Speaking in an interview with The Talks in 2013, Brian De Palma remarked that,
"I was able to beat the ratings board with Scarface. Even though they rated it X, I was able to appeal to the whole committee, and we got it passed. There's a lot of controversy about how Scarface was edited, but in reality, everything I cut out to appease the rating board, I put back in, and that's what you see."
In other words, the original theatrical release of Scarface that was released in 1983 with an R rating is Brian De Palma's original uncut version of the film that was initially rated X by the MPAA, and this version has always been the sole version available in the United States, in theatres and on home video. In the United Kingdom, Scarface was submitted to the BBFC for a cinema classification in its original R-rated version. The board took issue with only one particular sequence in the film, Tony Montana being forced to watch the dismemberment of his friend Angel by chainsaw. The BBFC's aversion to the use of chainsaws on screen had really begun following the release of Tobe Hooper's The Texas Chainsaw Massacre in 1974, and the board's objection to the tool continued for a number of years. To name but one example, the 1988 horror comedy Hollywood Chainsaw Huggers was cut by the British censors in order to remove not only scenes of violence involving a chainsaw, but also to remove the word chainsaw from the title of the film. At the time, the UK video distributor printed an apology on the video cover for the amount of footage that the BBFC had removed, which amounted to almost 70 seconds. It would be 12 years before Hollywood Chainsaw Huggers was passed uncut in Britain. But getting back to Scarface, here is how the death of Angel plays in the uncut version of the film in its second reel.
Hey, Antonio, mira, watch what happened to your friend. You don't want this to happen to you? Give me the money, okay?
Coño.
Happy leg, huh?
Vamos a ver. Ya es hora, man. Ya es hora.
Let's do it, man. Come on.
Okay. No te apures, okay?
For the UK cinema release, the BBFC demanded,
In the chainsaw sequence, remove the line, and now for the leg, and the entire scene containing it, in which Tony's face is splattered with blood as he is forced to watch Angel's leg being cut with saw.
Hey, Antonio. Mira. Watch what happened to your friend. You don't want this to happen to you? You give me the money, okay?
Vamos a ver. Ya es hora, man. Ya es hora.
Let's do it, man. Come on.
Ok. No te apures, ok?
After 25 seconds of cuts had been made, Scarface was passed with an 18 rating on January the 16th, 1984. A few years later, the film was submitted to the BBFC for a VHS rating in its uncut version, but the board once again took issue with the chainsaw murder, stating that the distributors needed to
reduce the chainsaw sequence by removing the whole of the middle scene in which Tony's face is splattered with blood as he is forced to watch Angel's leg being cut with saw.
Once again, after 25 seconds of cuts, the film was passed with an 18 rating for a VHS release on January the 19th, 1987. For a while, this cut version would be the standard version available to British fans, until the film was re-released on video in the 1990s. CIC Video resubmitted the film to the BBFC in its uncut form in widescreen early in 1994, and the BBFC passed the film uncut with an 18 rating on March the 23rd. This same uncut version was later passed 18 on October the 13th, 2000 and July the 4th, 2003 for two different DVD releases, with a Blu-ray release in 2011 also containing the uncut version. To summarise, Scarface is available uncut in both the United States and the United Kingdom, and can be purchased by fans in either territory without fear of censorial interference.